Hello, Tom Levecki here with the next edition of the New Theory Podcast. Today, you got a very, very, very special guest by the man named Steve Griggs of Steve Griggs Design, and we're going to be talking about his newly launched book on Amazon, Straight Dirt, New York's premier landscape designer tells it like it is. Steve Griggs, welcome to the New Theory Podcast. How you doing today?
Good, Tom. What's happening? Hot day out here today, but got to keep pushing. What are you going to do?
Love it. And just, guys, that literally Steve is actually on site now. Guys, I was working, so we're catching in between, and we appreciate your time, Steve. So let's start off. So you are, and for those, some of you probably heard of Steve, especially, I'm a big Grant Cardone fan, and I saw a lot of his stuff there, and I've been following him for a while. So when we connected, I was excited. But for those, Steve, who don't know you, how did you get your start? Your premier architectural, design landscaper in New York City and beyond. But how did you start? Give us your quick background.
Well, real quick, started cutting grass when I was 18. Used that money to pay for landscape architecture school. Got out of landscape architecture school, worked for a guy for a few months, decided I got to do this on my own, started my own business, and basically through word of mouth, I've been doing it, 30 years by now. We specialize in residential landscaping in affluent areas in the tri-state area. That's kind of my niche, my sweet spot.
Love it. Now, when you started, were you traditional, cut lawns, and you had your, 100 some odd accounts and then rolled it into saying, I want to do bigger and better? Or did you start right away in the affluent market?
No, it just started right away in the market. Just basically starting, planting some flowers, and it just kind of built. And now we do swimming pools, rooftop gardens, pool houses, swimming pools. Basically, we create the entire backyard environment, right? So
Love it.
Anything to do with the outside of the house is what we do. Just like you would hire a architect to design the inside, we basically do everything outside the four walls. That's the easiest way to explain it.
Love it. All right. One thing I like is, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs, who listen in, and many of them are millennials. And one thing I like about how you started out was you kind of went right for it, because you hear like people in the journey, and they do the kind of the lower end stuff until they get the higher end stuff and they pivot. But you got in right away. So we're gonna put a link to the book. You got to see some of these designs. I mean, this is artistry. So how was this something you always, are you an artist by nature, and then this just happens to be in landscaping, or
no,
went into this, and you developed? I want to see how you got to this point from a creative standpoint.
Honestly, I don't know. It started, planting some bushes here and there. Basically, the way I look at it, it's kind of like three-dimensional art, right? So instead of painting on the canvas, I basically painted in somebody's backyard using dirt, rocks, water features, that kind of thing. It's basically, and it really has nothing to do with so much the artistry. It's really the customer service, man. This business is riddled with people that don't show up, not responsible. I mean, if you ever have done a home improvement project inside, how many times doesn't the guy show up?
Yep.
That's basically how the book came about, really.
Yes. All right. So give us some of that straight dirt. Give us one or two stories, whether from the book or not, to what it be, because I'm excited. My book is on the way. I see the book is trending nicely, which is great. We'll put a link. So give us some of the one or two quick pieces of straight dirt about the industry.
You can't even, the list is on and on. So basically the reason for the book was like when you read a lot of gardening books, I remember in college reading a lot of landscape architecture books, I found them extremely boring. Like there was no real meat to it. Like if a homeowner is doing a project at their house, like a construction project, you don't really hear the horror stories and what can go wrong and what not can go wrong. So I tried to explain to people that, these are the guidelines you should really follow when doing landscape, because it's not a small item. To do it right, it's big bucks, $200,000-$300,000 you can get up to. So it's not a small little plant a couple of flowers. You have to really think this whole process through, and it's filled with headaches. It's construction business. It's the same thing. It's just part of organizing, scheduling, and keeping the customers happy. I mean,
love it. And so let's just say, affluent. We have a lot of plastic surgeons listening because we do a lot of health. So for the plastic surgeon folks who are affluent and decide to do their house. I think, and I think you'd agree with this question is, doesn't it add value to the house almost a little above and beyond what the investment is? And isn't that maybe another reason to do some high-end landscaping?
Yeah, I've read articles where it can increase their home value property, 10 to 50 times % of the value of the home based on screening, if you're going to block out a neighbor. Swimming pools, not so much, but, it's really curb appeal. Like if you're selling a house and somebody drives by and it's landscaped properly and maintained, that definitely increases the value of the house with nice mature trees. It's the whole environment that you're trying to create around the whole property. If you're going to do something like this,
yeah. So it's telling the narrative, basically. It's telling the narrative of the home. So even before I come in, it will give me the narrative. And then as well as obviously when you go in the house, it should kind of complete the narrative. And then, homes are reflective.
I lost you.
Of talking to guys like you. Why write a book? Books are not necessarily the most, the time-consuming, they're not big money makers. So why write a book?
The book was really designed for future clients, let's say. So before I go, if I get a phone call, somebody wants to talk to me about a swimming pool or a backyard, I send them the book. They can learn a little bit about it and kind of get the nuts and bolts of it and kind of know what questions to ask me or anybody. Like, what's the proper questions to ask? When should I start planning it? What is the permit process like? What if I hit rocks? What about extra costs? How long is this going to take? I mean, it's a whole list of things you should really run through, because when the guy shows up and he digs a giant hole in your backyard, you're kind of screwed. No pun intended, but you got to you're stuck there. He made a mess of your house. So you kind of want to have everybody on the same page, right? Communication is key when you're dealing with contractors. Scope of work, write it down, what's included, and more importantly, what's not included.
Correct. How do you deal with scope creep? You want great customer service. You want people to be happy. The higher end jobs, they deal with you, but you've been around in the game. And remember, you also deal with successful people because they got money and they didn't get there by accident. They're not idiots either, right? So how do you deal with scope creep and them trying to get a little bit more out of you than they borrow?
It's very simple. What do you mean? What do you mean scope creep? How do they?
Scope creep, you agree on, 8 foot.
We call it in New York. We call it squeezing me, right? You squeezing me, right?
Yes. When they try to squeeze you, I love it. What do you do?
So basically, I say, because everybody wants to squeeze, and they're all looking for the discount. They're all looking for the thing. I say, guys, listen. I have to make a certain amount of money to stay in business, right?
Correct.
So you can squeeze me, and you can feel good about squeezing me that you saved the 10%. But I tell them straight up, I'm gonna make it up. Like, I'm not giving away anything. Like, if you beat me down too much and I can't make a profit, and something goes wrong with your job, but I have to come back and warranty it, you want the contractor happy. You got to be fair. It's got to be fair. You got to treat the client fair, and they got to treat you fair. And it's a win-win. I've never had any problems. If I be upfront and honest with that, it always seems to work the best. When they squeeze you, they're going to pay in the long run.
You know what? I love that because, wow, I wish I talked to you 5 years ago, because in the beginning when I started my business, the first thing was I went to discounting. And then I realized consciously or subconsciously afterwards that I either had to give up profit, which threatened my business and almost knocked me out of business, or I did have to make up for it, and clients picked up on it. So how long did it take you to have that conversation? Were you straight up like that, or it took you a few years to build that confidence?
No, straight up. It took me, I've been doing this 35 years. How many times do you think I got my teeth kicked in? I mean, really, it's like, hundreds of thousands of dollars in lessons. I'm telling you, I have more experience in this just from hard knocks. I mean, that's it. Hard knocks, getting my ass kicked, getting beaten, promising somebody that you can't deliver and it ends up costing you money. So now I just tell them it's just much more. I'm 58 years old, so it's like, guys, I don't have time for the games. Like, do the job once, do it right, and let's just, make this good. If you squeeze me too hard, it's not a good way to start out of the gate. I'd rather give them time to say, I'd rather give them, instead of the discount, hey, man, let me give you 6 months extra maintenance. Let me do something extra. Let me plant a couple more flowers. Don't squeeze me on the number.
Correct.
This is New York, man. This is New York. They just thrive on squeezing. Like, this is like, you know what it's like. You're from Jersey.
God.
Like
my nuts are in a vice constantly. Yeah.
I got clients that still have their first nickel. Like, it's like they just squeeze them still till they cry. They just get off on it. I don't know.
I love it. So just a few lessons, folks. One is pick your lane right away, even if it's going to be harder to get there. Number 2, be up front. Number 3, how to prevent discounting, a.k.a. the squeeze. And then number 4 is buy Steve's book, because his personality is going to shine through on this book. And even if at the very least, the artistry should be enough. If not, you'll get to learn more about Steve. So, Steve, just give us 1 or 2, other than preventing the squeeze, finish us off with 1 or 2 of your business principles that have made you a success.
One that jumps out, I'm not sure if it's in the book. Like, you could do this beautiful backyard for somebody and spend $300,000 on the backyard. But if you tell them you were going to do something and you didn't do it, even if it's replacing an $8 plant and you don't do it, your name is shit. I mean, really. Like, I do word of mouth is 100%. Even if you're not in the landscape business, any kind of business, you have to do what you say you're going to do. That's all you have is your word.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's so obvious, but people don't follow the site.
Oh, my God, they don't follow it. I mean, really, you don't have to be the best landscape. Honestly, you don't have to be the best designer or anything. Show up, do what you're going to say you're going to do, and just be fair, and it's not that hard.
I love it. Steve, listen, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Plus, he's launching his book today, which we will leave a link. And, Steve, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks, Tom. Have a good one.
You too, buddy.
Bye.